I start this video with this image. It looks very unusual. This was my first computer. IBM didn't teach me anything about computers. All I learned how to do was be either a card swapper or a mechanic for a key punch machine. But I kept asking to get involved with the computers and understand them, and it never happened. So Professor Dixon said, let's set up a computer lab. So for about, I don't know, 1978, maybe this was 1977, 76, this was maybe $800. So that was pretty salty for a thing, but I actually built this thing. I actually built it, and look how crude it is. Look how crude it is. Here's a single step switch, which shows you how down to earth or down to the machine level it was. Run, stop, examine. Look at this. Here's how you inputted information. You put it in, the input was into these switches, and notice it's broken up into two nibbles for the byte. Ooh, hexadecimal, nibbles and bytes. Here's the address and data. How weird is that? Now let's look at the internals. See these internals? All these slots in here with all these cards? Well, one card has some RAM on it. One card has the processor, which as one of the first 8-bit microprocessors, the Intel 8080, from which the MSI 8080 gets its name. And then all these components were just loose in a box, and they had to be inserted and soldered. Don't we love to solder? And I built this whole thing from scratch. And here's a little fan to cool it off. This 28 amp power supply, which is really hefty for something like that. Well, this was like this was really a strong setup. There's no question about it. So I don't think there's a lot more I have to say. I know we had to design our own really low operating system, and Dr. Dixon did most of the operating system, which allowed us to use a crude RS-232 monitor to load the operating system up, and he had a little page on there to show how to input the steps so we could get the thing running and load a program with a keyboard rather than these crazy little bit switches. Here's what a program looked like. And these are assembly instructions, a little bit step up from using machine code, but these are the assembly instructions used for writing a program at this low Intel 8080 processor. So that's where I was. Now, did I know BASIC? No, I didn't know BASIC yet. They were using BASIC in the lab with over teletype terminals that were tied into the university. Wow. See, they didn't have PCs then. That wasn't around yet. They did have an Apple computer. I guess they did have PCs. They had an Apple computer, but it wasn't a PC. It was a larger system, and I think the math department maybe had it, but I didn't go for that. I had that Fortran programming class that I mentioned before, but that just showed me how to program. It didn't really show me how the computer itself worked. So this was really exciting. This was really close. I was on the cutting edge of the industry. I needed some other courses to complete my degree, so how did that happen? Well, most of them were topics that were way over my head. The electromagnetic theory, I wanted to learn about that, but I didn't have the vector calculus needed to really understand it. So a lot of smarty pants that had good math were in there that kind of showed how smart they were. And I remember one day I actually came up with an answer that nobody else knew. And they go, "Oh, Wells, I didn't think he was that smart." So that's kind of where I left the university. And I did get a degree. And one day I was thinking of going to a master's degree in electrical engineering. And then one of the students said, "Oh, you're too late. You should have applied to graduate school already." And I said, "Well, who cares? I'm going back to IBM. I've got a solid job there. So I'm going to go back to IBM and learn about operating systems." So that's what I thought was going to happen next.